Moving on to our other key focus, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel held a meeting with their Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on Monday. The meeting is being seen as a revival of Europe's ties with China. Now, this comes ahead of several high-stakes global meetings, including the COP26 summit on global warming in the UK and the G20 summit in Rome. On the issue of climate change, Macron and Merkel addressed the importance of ending the financing of coal-fired power stations. On the issue of trade, the two leaders reaffirmed Europe's expectations on access to the Chinese market and fair competition conditions. Merkel reportedly encouraged China to open air links as soon as possible. According to the French presidency, the two leaders raised the issue of human rights in China. Remember, according to rights groups, over 1 million Uyghur Muslims are kept in detention camps in China's Xinjiang province. Xi Jinping reportedly said that Europe and China could expand cooperation to better respond to global challenges. The Chinese state broadcaster also said that Xi Jinping expressed hope that Europeans can play a more active role in international affairs and offer a fair environment for Chinese firms. China and the European Union have struggled to keep cooperation afloat as the bloc's leaders have criticized Beijing's human rights record. The overall focus of the video conference was to try and fix that. The European Parliament halted a new investment pact with China until Beijing lifts sanctions on the EU politicians. The move came as a blow to the EU-China relationship. The EU-China Comprehensive Agreement on Investment aimed to put EU companies on an equal footing in China, but Beijing had imposed sanctions in March on 10 EU politicians in retaliation to Western sanctions against Chinese officials. Europeans have so far adopted a sharper tone with China and pressed for action over democracy and human rights abuses. And our correspondent Lucy Hof joining us from Brussels. Lucy, if you can elaborate on the key takeaways from that crucial meeting.
Well, certainly there was a commitment from both sides to boost ties, and that was certainly the message that we had in the readout from the Chinese side from President Xi Jinping, that this was really a positive meeting where there was an affirmation for the need to strengthen particularly economic ties under the terms of that EU-China investment agreement that was agreed in principle at the end of last year, but is now stalled in the European Parliament with MEPs having concerns about human rights. President Xi Jinping said this was a time to end what he called zero-sum games and suspicion, to boost economic ties. He said that there was a commitment to allow French companies access to the Chinese market and the need for air travel to resume between Europe and China following months of suspension of services over the course of the pandemic. But the message from the German and French sides was somewhat more pessimistic. We understand that the issue of forced labour and human rights, particularly in the Xinjiang province, were raised. That was certainly not something that was touched on as part of the readout from Beijing. There was also a commitment, however, for the two sides to work together on areas like climate change in light of those two major conferences coming up later in the year, the COP26 conference in Glasgow in the UK, but also the G20 summit in October in Rome. There was also a commitment to other areas such as the reform of the World Trade Organization.
Any specific commitment that has been made when it comes to the issue of human rights?
Well, as I say, this was something that was mentioned in the French readout of the call. We understand that both French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel raised the issue of human rights abuses and forced labour in the Xinjiang province. This was not something that was mentioned in the Chinese readout, but there is clear concern here amongst members of the European Parliament who have essentially suspended the ratification of the EU-China investment agreement that was finally finalised at the end of 2020 after 7 years of tough negotiations. That bill, given that tit-for-tat imposition of sanctions from both Beijing and the EU on individuals on either side, as well as organisations and bodies working in the Xinjiang region, So, clearly signs of mounting tensions. And we understand that there was a commitment from both Merkel and Macron to, or an expression of support of that agreement, but no concrete suggestions on when that ratification process might happen.
Lucy Hove, thanks very much for those updates. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.